Yo, what's good YouTube? It's Utrich from Agony, and I'm here to show you guys how you can improve your work ethic when making melodies in a full studio. And so the first thing I want to show is this loop, and then I'll go over some tips and tricks and how you can use these ideas when making melodies to make your melodies faster, find everything you need to faster, and improve your work ethic. And this is the first loop I'll show. But yeah, as you can see, it's not a lot of sounds, it's a few sounds that intertwine very well and they play into each other and they play together in a cohesive way rather than taking up each other's space and melodies working against each other. But yeah, the first tip is knowing your sound selection and knowing what sounds you usually use for your style. As you can see, I use more pianos and wrlds and some ARPS, some sub basses, and sometimes some vocals as well. Finding what sounds that work well for your style and putting them in either stash kits or getting kits that work with your style well, in order to find these sounds faster, to create your melodies faster, so you don't have to go through every VST mindlessly finding these sounds. And so for my style, for example, internet money, banks, or one-shot kits work very well, but it's different for everyone, of course. The second tip is knowing some chord progressions and some key scales and knowing, like, finding these faster. As you can see, like, I don't even have like a piano notes here or any way of like knowing where I am, and I kind of did this to kind of naturally learn the scales in my head instead of seeing these and it'll be like, oh yeah, these notes will work or not. But doing this, I've learned that. So I know, for example, in the C sharp minor scale, this note, this note, this note, this note, this note, this, and we're back. But yeah, it's something that you'll learn over time and you don't have to do it this way. But yeah, knowing some chord progressions and learning what chord progressions you like so you can use them. And obviously you shouldn't do this every time, but it's good if you want to have one cook-up session and do a lot of loops, then you should learn some chord progressions that fit you well so you can find these melodies fast and easier. And this is one chord progression I like a lot. So it's the first chord in the scale, and then it's the sixth, and then it's the third, and it's the seventh. So it's first a minor chord and then it's three major chords, but it depends on like inversions and if you do suspended chords or yeah. I think these chords play really nice into each other because the last chord, the seventh, results really well into the first chord, and it's a common chord progression. But yeah, find your chord progressions that you like. Some other ones I like is the first to the seventh to the sixth, and then the sixth again will look something like this in this case. The third tip is knowing what instruments work well with each other, and there's two major, or maybe three major things you want to look at when knowing what instruments work well. The first one is like the texture, how well the texture fits. That's why these instruments work well to each other, because a piano has kind of higher attack, it has very clear texture, while the wrlds is much more laid back. It has a larger sustain and it's much calmer in a way, more like a pad. And so these play really well with each other, even if they're like around the same frequencies, because the textures are so different. So they fill out each other. The second thing, I mentioned it, but it's frequencies. Knowing you want to fill out the frequencies as much as possible in a melody to make it sound full and cohesive. So having just few instruments like this piano and this wrlds might sound good for one part, but for an entire melody it's gonna feel like it's missing something. For example, up here, and that's where you want to add other instruments to fill out. And so for this melody I add an ARP, which plays in the mid highs, but you could probably go ahead and even like raise these EQ frequencies, or maybe even put it up an octave to make it fill out even better. But I have the vocal later to do that. But this melody or this ARP kind of adds another melody on top. I get to this later though. But yeah, as I said, the vocal fill out the high ends of the melodies, as you can see here. I took out some though because I didn't like this. Like, I took out some of the highs though because I didn't like the air in it. But it still fills out the highs, and together it fills out pretty much all frequencies, the whole board. makes it sound very full and rich, which is important. And also another thing, and this is the ARP again, the third thing you should know when what instruments and what sounds work well together is that you should have some like main instruments and then some lead instruments. Because for example, like guitar and a flute works really well together because the guitar plays the chords and it kind of plays most of the frequencies and everything, but the flute stands out because it's a lead instrument and it's played like only plays one note, and while the guitar plays many notes at the same time, and so they work good with each other. In this case I had a piano and an ARP that only plays one note. Alright, now that we have the tips done, we're moving on to the tricks and shortcuts you can do with an FL to improve your work ethic, and some creative ideas you can use in order to make your loops faster. And the first is still in this loop, and I have an example here. It's the ARP, and it's layering or using ARPs to find melodies faster, because you can do something as simple as this, like it's 6 notes per 4 bars, and then it's repeated with just the last note changing. But it works really well because the notes are moving, because it's an ARP, and it's really easy to lay out a melody like this with an ARP. And you should find ARP easy if you have your sound selection organized, as I said before. And so yeah, layering ARPs or using ARPs to make melodies is a very good tip to make your melodies faster. Alright, so here's the second thing you can do with ARPs, and it's layering entirely. Instead of just doing a melody, you can just copy your original pattern of melody and then layering it with an ARP to kind of find a new sound or a new melody progression, and you can layer it and it will sound so much richer and full. It's a good way to improve workflow. So I'll play the original melody by itself. So that's the main melody, and here we have it layered with an ARP, which you should find your ARPs easy if you organize your sound, so you don't have to spend too long finding these kind of sounds. But here's the layer. And yeah, just layering takes next to no time, but it adds these accents or sometimes even remakes the whole melody, so it works really well together. But it's a really fast way to add on to your melody without spending too much time finding another melody or finding another sound that works well. But it will make a new melody that will fit most likely very fast. And this is what it sounds together. My next trick, I'm going to move into yet another loop. Alright, so my second trick for like improving your work speed and work ethic is using plugins and effects that manipulate sounds. For example, Grossbeat, Shaperbox, Portal, or Effectrix. Like what I mean by this is you can have your main melody on one instrument, you can layer it with another one that fits with the tips I suggested before, with the frequencies so it fills out, stuff like that. And then on the layer you add an effect or plugin like that that manipulates the sound, and you can kind of easily find either a new melody or a counter melody very easily. And so I'll show the main melody in this one. Then the layer without the Grossbeat. By the way, these Grossbeats will be available on my IG. I'm almost done with the pack. This is not the full version, it's the old version. And these will be free, and you can get these and use these in the way I am doing. Yeah, let me show it without the Grossbeat first. It sounds like this. You can hear that the frequencies are a bit higher than the first one, so it layers very well. And then with the Grossbeat preset that I made, it sounds like this. And so it kind of makes a new melody that works very well as counter melody. Let me play them together. I also have another example of using Grossbeat to add another layer and make a new melody. This main melody, it's super simple. It's just one melody repeated. It is 2 bar that is repeated, or it's even 1 bar that's almost repeated. It's so simple. But yeah, 2 bars repeated over and over again, just changing the root notes to keep it interesting and with a good progression. But this is the main instrument, the main melody. as you can see, super simple. But then I did the same thing. I layered the exact same thing, exact same melody, exact same pattern with another sound. Let's play without the Grossbeat. Here you can see a closer one to the finished one. By the time this video is out, the pack's gonna be finished and link's gonna be in the description, and you can get it for free when you follow the steps. This is without the Grossbeat. As you can see, exact same melody. But with the Grossbeat presets, it sounds like this. But yeah, it's a very easy way to add a counter melody, and in a creative way that takes close to no time. Just finding a good layer, but with the tips I mentioned before, that should take no more than a minute. And you have a much richer and full sounding sample with another counter melody in it. Then I added a lead, which I also put Grossbeat on, because I thought it sounded cool. But I honestly like it both ways. This is with the lead. And this is with the Grossbeat. And honestly, like, you could use both versions and yet again improve your work ethic by having both versions of the lead playing at different times to make another counter melody. But as I said, you don't need to use Grossbeat only. You can have Shaper Box, you can have Portal, or any kind of plugin or effect that manipulates the sample in some way to find new melodies very fast and easy. So moving into the last trick, I have two samples to show, because it's the idea of having or starting one sample and then taking one part of it and then flipping it and making a new sample using the first sample as a starter. And doing this can save time, not only finding your bass melody, but it will also make it kind of a new sound that you wouldn't usually get by just making something from scratch. It's a very creative way to improve your work ethic and save time and make you work faster, basically. And so this is the first sample that I'm going to show, and this one I later on flipped. I think I flipped the piano, but I'm gonna show the sample as it is. It's a very interesting sample and unique, but yeah, let me show you how I re-flipped this piano into an entirely different loop. So it was in D minor in this loop, but I took it down to C minor and then took it up an octave. Much brighter, but then I added Grossbeat presets, super simple presets. It's halftime and then halftime reverse, and then another Grossbeat that just kind of, to keep it interesting, add some chops and reverse. And it sounds like this now. And so I took this into another FLP, which I'll move to now and then show what I did with this piano. Now we're in the new FLP with the piano, and this is the exact same piano. Let me just play it with the Grossbeat effects. And so I took this and I pitched up 600 cents because it was very dark and muddy. Now it sounds like this. And then I just layered it with the chords and on a string, because it would kind of richen the high end even more. And I added a flute, which is very simple, just using some chromatic sequences. Let me know if y'all want a tutorial or a guide through of some simple music theory, because I don't know a lot, but I know the basics, so I can work faster and kind of know what notes will work and not. And this is the same flute, just pitched down an octave to kind of have a progression in the melody that feels like it's going upwards and more uplifting. And then I have bass, and it sounds like this now. And yeah, using that piano that I made on the first one and flipping it made this piano sound something that I wouldn't usually come up with, as well as just saving so much time because I didn't have to come up with a melody from scratch. I just used to what I had before and then made something completely different. But yeah, that's all. Thank y'all for watching, and make sure to check out our main channel where we drop loop kits every Sunday. Go like and comment, let me know what you want from me in the future. I'll probably post tutorials pretty often, mostly about how to make samples and what kind of music theory maybe you need to know. But yeah, have a good one.